My child. You wake up and the alarm rings, piercing the quiet sanctuary of the morning. But your spirit simply does not move. Your body feels impossibly heavy, weighed down not with the natural, restorative tiredness of sleep, but with the profound, aching exhaustion of a soul that knows it is entirely in the wrong place. I see you lying there in the dim, early light, staring blankly at the ceiling, feeling the immediate, suffocating weight of dread settling firmly on your chest long before your feet even touch the cold floor. I know the chaotic, heavy thoughts that race through your mind in those solitary, quiet moments of the dawn. You quietly wonder if there is something fundamentally broken inside of you. You ask yourself, in the secret chambers of your heart, why you cannot just be happy with what you have. Why you cannot simply go to work, do your job, and return home in peace like everyone else seems to do with such effortless ease. The world looks at your life from the outside and loudly tells you that you should be deeply satisfied. That you have a solid roof over your head and a steady, reliable income to sustain you. And so you swallow your bitter discontent, put on a brave face, and force yourself out of bed. But I am here to tell you right now, my precious child, that you are not lazy, you are not ungrateful, you are not broken, defective, or flawed for feeling this profound, visceral resistance to the life you are currently living. You are simply too big for the room you are standing in. I created you for vast, sweeping landscapes and endless, breathtaking horizons. But you have been living your days pacing back and forth inside a tiny cage that was never, ever meant to hold you permanently. You are a fierce lion locked in a fragile bird cage. And the metal bars are finally starting to hurt. The restriction is pressing hard against your expansive spirit. And the confinement is causing you deep, unseen agony that no one else understands. Stay with me right now, and listen closely. Because I need you to understand with absolute clarity that finding this exact message at this exact second is not a random, meaningless occurrence. This is a divine, holy appointment, perfectly and intricately orchestrated from the very foundations of the world just for you. I gently guided your hand to click. I guided your weary eyes to watch. And I purposely quieted the frantic noise around you so that you could finally hear my voice speaking directly to your battered, weary heart. Today, we must talk about the agonizing plateau of the overqualified. That deeply painful season where your undeniable competence has paradoxically become your absolute greatest imprisonment. We are going to speak honestly about the terrifying moment when what once felt like a haven of safety slowly transforms into a suffocating, airless prison. I know you truly thought this job, this specific position, this stable life was the magnificent answered prayer you had been waiting for so long. And I want to validate that for a season. It absolutely was. It provided for your earthly needs. It sheltered you from the storm. And it taught you the vital lessons you needed to know to grow. But seasons change, my child. And the grace that once beautifully covered that place has lifted. Not to abandon you to the wolves, but to urgently draw you out into the wider, deeper waters of your true, ultimate calling. Do not turn away from this challenging truth. Because the intense discomfort you are feeling today is not a sign of your personal failure, it is the very undeniable evidence of your internal expansion. Your spirit is stretching beyond its limits. Your capacity for greatness is growing exponentially. And the sharp pain you feel is simply the pain of an old, restrictive shell cracking wide open so that something entirely new, incredibly powerful, and far more beautiful can finally emerge. I am calling you higher. I am calling you deeper. And this message is the absolute confirmation you have been desperately begging me for in all of your silent, tear-filled prayers. I see the profound, bone-deep exhaustion that has settled entirely within the marrow of your soul. I see you when you wake up. Take a deep breath, and meticulously put on that familiar, heavy mask. The one you have flawlessly perfected over years of pretending that everything in your life is perfectly fine. I know the exact, crushing weight of the smile you force onto your face when you walk through those office doors. greeting passing colleagues with a bright, hollow cheerfulness that does not even begin to reach the bottom of your heavy, grieving heart. I hear the deafening, haunting silence of your completely abandoned dreams. Those vibrant, breathtaking visions I planted deep inside of you that you have quietly, tragically packed away in the dusty attic of your mind simply because they felt too impossible, too grand, or far too risky to actually pursue. The world you walk through every single day is so incredibly, overwhelmingly loud. It constantly and aggressively shouts at you to hustle harder, to grind relentlessly without rest, to climb corporate ladders that ultimately lead to absolute nowhere, and to measure your divine, eternal worth by shallow, earthly metrics of success and accumulation. It tells you to be quietly thankful for a meager paycheck, to just keep your head down, to not cause a scene, and to never, ever question the repetitive, soul-crushing cycle that drains the very life force straight from your veins. But my beloved child, that relentless, unforgiving noise is draining you completely dry. It is forcefully pulling you away from the still, restorative waters I have lovingly prepared for you and dragging you by the ankles into a barren desert of endless, joyless obligation. I see you carrying this immense, invisible, crushing burden entirely alone, terrified that if you finally speak your authentic truth, you will be met with harsh judgment or told by those around you that you are simply being ungrateful for the basic provisions you possess. I see you sitting silently at your desk or standing tiredly at your post, completely surrounded by dozens of people, yet feeling completely isolated, profoundly lonely, and fundamentally misunderstood by every single one of them. I know you feel like you are slowly, inevitably disappearing, fading into the grey background of your own existence, becoming nothing more than a mechanical function, a disposable resource, or a replaceable cog in a massive machine that does not care one bit about your eternal spirit. I hear your desperate spirit whispering for air, gasping for a single, life-giving breath of authentic purpose in a room filled only with artificial light and empty, meaningless conversations. I see you when you log in to check your bank account and feel a hollow, bitter victory, knowing that the money successfully pays the bills but does not even come close to buying back the precious fragments of your soul that you trade away 5 long days a week. I hear you when you softly whisper your prayers of quiet, aching desperation on your long commute home, staring out the window and asking me if this is truly all there is to the miraculous life I breathed into your lungs. I was right there standing beside you when you looked in the mirror this morning and barely recognized the tired, empty eyes looking back at you, wondering where the passionate, vibrant, fiery person you used to be has gone. You are carrying a heavy, unnatural weight you were never, ever designed to carry. My precious child, you have taken the heavy, unforgiving yoke of the world entirely upon your own shoulders, and it is mercilessly grinding your beautiful spirit into fine dust. But I am the Lord who truly sees you, the God who perceives every hidden struggle and silent battle that no human eye could ever detect. Your pain is not invisible to my eyes. Your exhaustion is not a sign of weakness or lack of faith to me. It is a loud, ringing, urgent alarm bell in the heavenly realm, signaling that it is absolutely time for a massive, divine intervention in your story. I am here right now to lift that heavy burden from your back, to gently remind you that your inherent worth is not tied to your daily productivity, and to completely validate the deep, aching, insatiable hunger within you for something vastly more meaningful. You are spiritually starving for purpose in a cold world that only offers you a paycheck, and I am telling you today, with absolute certainty, that it is entirely right, perfectly natural, and completely holy for you to fiercely desire the abundant, overflowing life I promised you. You have flawlessly mastered the mundane tasks that were set before you long ago, and now your days simply blur together in a grey, monotonous haze of endless repetition. You see the gaps, the looming mistakes, and the glaring inefficiencies in your workplace days or weeks before they even happen. simply because your sharp mind has completely and entirely outgrown the limited environment you are situated within. You possess all the correct answers to the complex problems they face. But the tragic reality is that nobody is even asking you the right questions anymore. This, my child, is the first profound, hidden problem of your current, frustrating season. You are simply far too good at a job that no longer challenges your intellect, stretches your capabilities, or requires anything even remotely resembling faith from you to accomplish. Your undeniable competence, which was once a beautiful blessing that helped you establish yourself and gain your footing, has slowly, subtly, and insidiously mutated into the very bars of your cage. Success in this small place has become an endless, unfulfilling, repetitive loop. You are performing on complete, thoughtless autopilot. Your skilled hands and sharp mind executing daily tasks flawlessly while your vibrant spirit sits completely ignored in the corner, starved of any real inspiration and slowly dying of profound boredom. It feels exactly like a solid dead end to you. A massive, impenetrable brick wall that you have crashed into at full speed with absolutely nowhere left to turn and no way forward. But I desperately need to shift your perspective right here, right now. What you falsely perceive as a dead end is actually just a container that has become far, far too small for the sheer magnitude of your power, your unique anointing, and the extraordinary gifts I have carefully placed inside of you. Imagine, for a moment, a magnificent, towering oak tree trying desperately to grow its sprawling, deep, powerful roots inside a tiny, fragile plastic pot. Eventually, those powerful roots will aggressively hit the hard plastic walls, begin to coil back around themselves, and slowly choke the very life out of the magnificent tree. That tree is not failing, it is not broken, and it is not doing anything wrong. It has simply, naturally outgrown its temporary vessel. That is exactly, precisely what is happening to you right now in this season. Your spirit has expanded massively. Your divine wisdom has deepened profoundly, and your innate capacity to lead, to create, and to positively influence the world has multiplied tenfold. But the rigid structure around you has remained exactly, stubbornly the same. The managers, the company hierarchy, the rigid system you are currently bound to absolutely cannot accommodate the massive, explosive growth that has occurred within your soul over these past few transformative years. You feel hopelessly stuck simply because your powerful wings are constantly hitting the hard glass walls of an enclosure that was only ever meant to be a temporary, safe incubator for your budding talent. You were never, ever supposed to stay in this place forever. You were supposed to enter, learn the necessary lessons, gather the required resources, and then boldly launch yourself into the next, far more expansive dimension of your glorious destiny. But the enemy of your soul loves to use your own competence to keep you asleep and comfortable, constantly tricking you into believing that just because you are very good at what you do, you are automatically meant to do it for the rest of your natural life. Do not ever confuse mere proficiency with holy purpose. My child, you can be incredibly, undeniably skilled at something that is actively, daily destroying your joy and your peace. It is time to fully recognize that your intense boredom is not a character flaw or a sign of ingratitude. It is a flawless divine compass pointing you directly toward your true north. Your rising frustration is not a sin, it is holy, purposeful friction, intentionally designed by me to make you so incredibly uncomfortable in your current spot that you finally gather the necessary courage to step out into the unknown, exciting waters where I am eagerly waiting for you. I am actively using this profound, aching sense of dissatisfaction to permanently break your stubborn allegiance to mediocrity. If I allowed you to remain perfectly, blissfully content in a room that is vastly too small for you, you would never, ever seek the grand, sweeping palaces I have already built for your future. The hard ceiling you are constantly hitting your head against is not the sky, it is just the low roof of a building you urgently need to exit. Accept right now that your total mastery of this small, Limited domain is the absolute clearest sign that you are entirely ready to be a humble beginner again in a much larger, infinitely more glorious arena. I was there with you through every single silent, heartbreaking struggle, wrapping my warm presence completely around you even when you felt absolutely numb and disconnected from my touch. I know the endless, agonizing, tear-filled nights you laid completely awake, staring blankly at the ceiling in the pitch dark, watching the heavy shadows dance across the walls while your exhausted mind spun in endless, dizzying circles of profound anxiety and deep confusion about your unknown future. I see the silent, bitter, stinging tears you shed sitting entirely alone in the empty office parking lot, your white-knuckled hands gripping the steering wheel as you desperately gathered the sheer, unimaginable willpower just to turn off the engine, open the door, and walk into a building that feels exactly like a cold tomb for your divine potential. I know that awful, hollow, sinking feeling of sitting in a crowded, noisy meeting room, completely surrounded by chattering colleagues and demanding supervisors, yet feeling entirely like a fading ghost, invisible, completely unheard, and profoundly, unfairly undervalued. I was there standing right beside you, holding your shoulder, when the promotion you worked so hard for went to someone else, or when your brilliant, innovative ideas were casually dismissed without a second thought, and I intimately felt the exact, crushing moment your hopeful heart sank like a stone into your stomach. I was there tenderly holding you close to my chest when you felt like an absolute, worthless failure simply because you were not happy with what every single person around you told you should be more than enough. The enemy viciously whispered in your ear that you were greedy, that you were selfish, and that you should just quietly settle down, accept your mediocre lot in life, and stop dreaming. And I watched with a grieving heart as those poisonous lies pierced your tender, beautiful heart. But I hear your steady heartbeat in the dark, my beloved child. I hear the strong, rhythmic beating of a fierce warrior who is deeply weary but absolutely not defeated. A brilliant visionary who is currently resting but by no means dead. You must understand, deep in your bones, that you are never, ever abandoned in these incredibly dark moments of profound professional and personal despair. You are being securely held by the Almighty Creator of the universe. When you retreat to cry silently in the bathroom stall at work, locking the door to hide your pain, I am standing right there catching every single precious tear before it falls. When you sigh heavily at your cramped desk, completely overwhelmed by the crushing pointlessness of the endless tasks before you, I am right there actively breathing my Holy Spirit of endurance directly into your tired lungs. I have witnessed every single heartbreaking moment you desperately tried to mold yourself into a smaller, quieter shape that would fit their rigid expectations, violently cutting off beautiful pieces of your own vibrant, colorful personality just to make others feel more comfortable around you. I have seen the massive sacrifices you made, the long, grueling hours you put in, and the fierce dedication you showed to flawed people and cold systems that could never, ever love you back. But hear me now, I love you back. My love for you is not transactional. It is not based on your daily output, your annual performance reviews, or your fleeting ability to generate worldly wealth for someone else. I love you deeply and passionately simply because you are mine. And it truly breaks my heavenly heart to see you settling for living a tiny fraction of the abundant life I specifically designed for you. I am intimately, perfectly acquainted with all your ways, and I am here right now validating every single ounce of pain and frustration you feel in this stagnant, suffocating season. Do not let the heavy isolation of this trial convince you for a second that you are walking this difficult path alone. I am personally going before you to make the crooked, confusing places straight. I am standing fiercely behind you to guard your back from attacks. And I am walking right beside you to tightly hold your hand when the paralyzing fear of the future tries to halt your steps. You are deeply, profoundly seen, perfectly and completely known, and relentlessly, fiercely loved in the exact midst of this confusing, messy transition. Let the absolute truth of my constant, unwavering presence wash entirely over your anxious, racing mind right now. Let it completely dissolve the heavy, rusted chains of loneliness that have bound your beautiful spirit for far too long. You absolutely do not have to fight this exhausting battle for your joy entirely by yourself anymore. Lean back entirely into my strong, everlasting arms and allow me to completely carry the heavy weight of your career, your finances, and your unknown future. I have never, ever failed you yet. And I am certainly not going to start failing you now. In the very monumental moment you need my guiding light the most, think deeply of my daughter Sarah, a beautiful, earnest soul whose powerful story perfectly mirrors the exact, difficult season you are exhaustingly walking through right now. For 10 long, draining, repetitive years, she sat obediently in the exact same chair, staring blankly at the exact same glowing computer screen, answering the exact same ringing phone calls, and dealing patiently with the exact same unresolved, frustrating problems. She was universally known as the completely reliable one, the steadfast employee everyone always counted on to pick up the heavy slack, the one who never complained and always flawlessly delivered exactly what was asked of her. She stayed firmly planted in that position year after passing year, completely ignoring the quiet, persistent prompting of my spirit, simply because it felt incredibly safe and familiar to her. The bi-weekly paycheck was completely predictable, the daily routine was entirely familiar, and the workload expectations were entirely manageable and known. But her desperate attachment to that false safety was actively causing a slow, devastating, unseen leak of her profound inner joy, dripping away drop by agonizing drop until she was entirely, utterly emotionally bankrupt. Every single morning she woke up feeling just a little more tired, a little more deeply cynical, and a little less like the radiant, passionate child I intricately created her to be. She felt an overwhelming, crushing, toxic guilt for simply wanting more out of her one precious life. She constantly, harshly told herself that she should be intensely grateful, that so many struggling people would practically kill for the steady job she had. And she genuinely felt like an absolute, ungrateful traitor to her own financial stability every single time she dared to daydream about finally walking away. She was entirely trapped in a cold prison of her very own making, securely locked behind invisible bars forged entirely from a false sense of obligation and a deep-seated, paralyzing fear of the great unknown. She desperately prayed to me, night after night, for a miraculous breakthrough. But she was entirely terrified of what that necessary breakthrough would actually cost her in the natural realm. She simply wanted me to easily fix the existing job, to miraculously change her difficult boss, or to somehow magically make the completely unbearable situation bearable. But I had a far, far greater, more expansive plan for her beautiful life. The massive turning point did not come with a shiny new promotion or a comfortable raise. It came on a completely ordinary, quiet Tuesday when she finally stopped fiercely fighting the holy, divine discontent I had purposefully placed deep inside her soul. It was the exact day she finally, truly realized that her profound, agonizing feeling of stuckness was absolutely not a brick wall designed to keep her entirely out of her glorious destiny. It was a cocoon. I had intentionally wrapped her in that quiet season of intense isolation and endless repetition not to harshly punish her, but to completely, miraculously transform her entire internal structure from the inside out. She finally understood that she had to stop exhaustingly trying to fix a job that was fundamentally, irreparably misaligned with her true calling, and she had to start actively, bravely preparing for the magnificent flight that I was urgently calling her into. Once she finally shifted her profound perspective, the paralyzing fear began to melt completely away, instantly replaced by a fierce, undeniable, holy courage. She boldly began to use her quiet evenings to study new things, her precious weekends to slowly build her true, burning passion, and her quiet, solitary moments to listen incredibly closely to my still, small voice actively directing her next steps. When she finally, bravely handed in her formal resignation, it was absolutely not an act of reckless, foolish rebellion, but a carefully orchestrated, deeply faithful step of radical, holy obedience. She confidently walked out of that building not knowing exactly how every single intricate detail of her future would unfold, but knowing with absolute, unshakable certainty that I was firmly holding her hand through it all. Her beautiful story is absolutely not an exception. My precious child, it is a divine blueprint drawn specifically for you. If she could successfully find the hidden door out of a decade-long, comfortable prison of false safety, so can you. The very same Holy Spirit of immense power, unconditional love, and a perfectly sound mind that miraculously resurrected her dead, stagnant career is actively flowing fiercely through your own veins right now, simply waiting for you to bravely say yes to the magnificent departure. Do not look at her true story as a distant fairy tale, but look at it as a vibrant, prophetic picture of exactly what I am entirely ready and willing to do in your own life right now. The long, exhausting time for settling for less is completely over. The painful season of constantly shrinking yourself down just to fit comfortably into someone else's small, restrictive box has officially, permanently come to an end. It is time to fully embrace the incredibly messy, undeniably beautiful, and entirely terrifying process of boldly breaking out of your dark cocoon and completely trusting the magnificent, powerful wings I have spent all these quiet years carefully forming on your back. As we go even deeper into this necessary spiritual diagnosis, we must bravely confront the second great, hidden problem that is firmly keeping you bound in this dark, stagnant place, which is the profound, tragic loss of your true, authentic self. I see you gradually, painfully forgetting exactly who you actually are completely outside of your formal professional title, your endless daily responsibilities, and your constant, exhausting ability to produce tangible results. You have slowly, almost imperceptibly, become the job itself. You have completely allowed a loud, demanding world to convince you that your entire, eternal identity is completely wrapped up in exactly what you do from 9 to 5 every single day. You reflexively introduce yourself by stating your occupation. You harshly evaluate your own self-worth by the size of your salary, and you mistakenly measure your overall success by the fickle, changing praise of human managers who are exactly as deeply flawed, confused, and lost as anyone else, because you have tragically attached your entire, precious identity to this fragile, worldly structure. When the job feels empty and meaningless, you instantly feel empty and meaningless. When the career suddenly stalls and plateaus, you mistakenly believe that you as a human being have completely stalled. I am loudly calling you today to forcefully, decisively sever that unholy, toxic attachment. You are absolutely not your job, my child. You are a breathtaking, handcrafted, entirely unique masterpiece of the Most High God, created with a specific, completely irreplaceable essence that exists completely, eternally independent of your earthly economic output. But there is a third, even more terrifying and paralyzing problem we must aggressively address right now. And that is the crippling, suffocating fear of the nothing. I know exactly, precisely why you choose to stay in a cold place that is actively breaking your beautiful spirit day after day. You are utterly terrified that if you finally gather the immense courage to boldly leave the wrong thing, there will be absolutely, positively no thing waiting for you on the other side to catch you. You are anxiously looking out at the vast, foggy unknown and seeing only a terrifying, bottomless void, a dark abyss of complete failure, devastating poverty, and profound, public embarrassment. You are actively, consciously choosing to remain in a deeply known, familiar hell simply because you are far too afraid to take a single step toward an unknown, entirely possible heaven. I hear your intense fear screaming loudly at you in the middle of the dark night. It viciously tells you that you are far too old to ever start over, that you absolutely do not have enough money saved to survive, that the global economy is far too bad to take a risk, and that absolutely nobody will ever hire you to do what you actually, truly want to do. It constantly tells you that your deepest dreams are foolish, childish fantasies, and that you will completely ruin your entire life if you dare to take a real leap of faith. But I am absolutely telling you right now, with the full, unwavering, absolute authority of the Creator of the entire universe, that your fear is viciously lying to you. It is nothing more than a demonic, crafted illusion designed specifically, intentionally to keep you completely paralyzed and frozen right on the very edge of your promised land. The unknown future is absolutely not a dark, terrifying void. It is the very magnificent, blank canvas upon which I purposefully paint my absolute greatest, most breathtaking masterpieces. When you finally step out of the rocking, unstable boat, you absolutely do not step onto thin, empty water. You step firmly, completely onto the solid, unshakable rock of my eternal promises. I have never, not once in all of eternity, asked one of my precious children to boldly leave a place of painful bondage without already carefully preparing a magnificent place of unprecedented, overflowing blessing for them to confidently step into. I have already, right now, gone far ahead into your specific future and completely secured your necessary provision, your overflowing joy, and your ultimate, glorious success. You must clearly identify these heavy, sinking anchors of false identity and paralyzing, irrational fear, and you must boldly take out a knife and cut the thick ropes today. Stop blindly agreeing with the toxic lies of the enemy. Stop letting your temporary fear aggressively dictate the permanent boundaries of your grand destiny, and start letting your unwavering faith in my perfect, loving character confidently guide your next monumental, life-changing move. You were absolutely not created to live a small, cowering life governed entirely by anxiety and driven by the desperate, endless need for fleeting human validation. You were beautifully created to walk boldly, with your head held high, in the full authority of heaven, knowing with absolute certainty that your heavenly Father literally owns the cattle on 1,000 hills and securely holds the entire, vast universe in the palm of his mighty hand. Release the false, fragile security of that worldly job title. Completely release the terrifying, false illusion of the empty void, and bravely fall backward into the boundless, deep, unending grace that I have prepared specifically, perfectly for this exact, magnificent moment of your beautiful, unfolding journey. I need you to be completely, entirely still right now, just for a profound, uninterrupted, holy moment of deep, sacred silence. Stop the endless, frantic racing of your incredibly anxious thoughts. Stop exhaustingly trying to map out and figure out the complete 10-year plan, and simply take a deep breath and breathe in the absolute reality of my holy, comforting presence completely surrounding you right now in this very room. I know with absolute, unquestionable, divine certainty that a massive, world-altering, tectonic shift is rapidly coming to your precious life. The unseen spiritual atmosphere all around you is already tangibly changing, heavily and beautifully pregnant with the glorious manifestation of the exact answers you have been desperately seeking for so long. I clearly see a massive door standing completely, invitingly wide open right in front of you. A magnificent door of incredible, unprecedented opportunity and profound, lasting peace. But you have simply not noticed it yet because your tired eyes have been cast entirely downward, focused entirely, obsessively on the heavy, chafing chains around your aching ankles. I hear the triumphant, joyful answer to your desperate, tear-soaked, midnight prayers rushing rapidly toward you with the absolute speed of light. It is truly closer to you right now than your very next breath. The massive blessing, the sudden breakthrough, the glorious transition you have been begging me for on your knees is already standing quietly inside the very room with you. But here is the profound spiritual reality you absolutely must grasp right now. My precious, Beloved child, you desperately, urgently need the quiet, intentional discipline of true stillness to actually be able to recognize it. You absolutely cannot possibly see the bright, new path I am lovingly illuminating for you while you are frantically, blindly running on a never-ending, exhausting hamster wheel of total exhaustion and rising panic. The enemy purposefully keeps you constantly busy, constantly stressed out, and constantly, deeply overwhelmed precisely because he knows, without a doubt, that if you ever actually stop long enough to just look around and catch your breath, you will clearly see the glowing exit signs I have purposely placed all over your dark prison walls. Breathe right now. Deeply inhale my supernatural peace, and fully exhale the heavy, suffocating pressure of your own crushing expectations. Let your tense shoulders finally drop. Intentionally unclench your tight jaw, and completely release the incredibly heavy, impossible burden of trying to personally control every single tiny outcome in your complex life. The beautiful, clear way out of this stagnant, soul-crushing, endless season is being meticulously, carefully paved by my strong angels right at this very exact second. You absolutely do not have to forcefully kick the heavy doors open with your own meager, depleted human strength, and you absolutely do not have to cunningly manipulate people or circumstances to desperately create your own hasty escape route. I am the ultimate waymaker. I am the very one who effortlessly parts the deep, uncrossable, terrifying waters and miraculously makes a safe, completely dry path for my beloved children to easily walk upon. Your only required job in this immediate, holy moment is to completely realign your weary spirit with my divine frequency, to purposefully tune out the loud, terrifying static noise of your own fears, and to listen incredibly closely for the gentle, soft, unmistakable whisper of my spirit quietly saying, "This is the way, boldly walk in it." Do not anxiously try to rush this sacred process. And do not panic wildly while sitting in the divine waiting room. The waiting room is absolutely not a harsh punishment or a sign of my forgotten favor. It is a deeply sacred, necessary space of profound preparation where I am carefully adjusting your spiritual vision so you can fully handle the brilliant, blinding light of your glorious new dawn. Trust with all your heart that this massive shift is not just a distant, unlikely possibility, it is an absolute, inevitable reality flawlessly orchestrated by my own loving hand. Quiet your anxious soul. Wipe your tears. Open your spiritual eyes wide. And watch with eager, joyful, undeniable expectation as I systematically, perfectly dismantle the old, restrictive structures of your past life and gently, lovingly guide you directly into the glorious, wide open, breathtaking spaces of your true divine calling. This is the exact moment where your faith must completely cease to be a mere intellectual concept and absolutely become the very life-giving oxygen you breathe into your lungs. When you finally, fully embrace this holy stillness, you will suddenly, miraculously realize that the chaotic, terrifying winds that scared you so deeply were actually just the powerful breath of my spirit, intentionally blowing away the dead, useless leaves of your past season to make abundant room for the fresh, vibrant, beautiful blossoms of your completely new beginning. Stand incredibly firm. Hold on to your peace fiercely, and know with absolute certainty that the Almighty God who effortlessly spoke the blazing stars into existence is right now personally, lovingly micromanaging every single detail of your magnificent, approaching deliverance. As we gently bring this incredibly sacred, deeply intimate time to a close, I want to deeply assure you, with the full, unwavering, absolute weight of my divine, eternal authority, that you are deeply, entirely, and miraculously protected in this profoundly uncomfortable, scary season of transition. The enemy desperately wants you to falsely believe that as soon as you bravely step away from the comfortable and familiar, you are inevitably going to fall flat on your face, completely ruin your hard-earned reputation, and tragically lose absolutely everything you have worked so incredibly hard to build over these past years. But I am telling you the absolute, undeniable, foundational truth right now. My beloved, precious child. You are absolutely not falling, you are being divinely moved. You are being incredibly carefully, purposefully, and intentionally relocated directly from a small place of heavy restriction to a massive place of unparalleled, glorious expansion by the very same loving hands that intricately, perfectly formed you in your mother's womb. I have actively placed an impenetrable, glowing shield of absolute grace completely around your entire life, your fragile mind, your precious family, and your vast, beautiful future. Absolutely no weapon formed against your career, your finances, your health, or your ultimate spiritual destiny will ever be allowed to successfully prosper. I want you to actively, fiercely claim this profound, supernatural peace right this very second. To boldly reach out your hands in the spiritual realm and firmly take hold of the magnificent promise I am directly extending to you. I want you to immediately type the powerful words "I trust" in the comments directly below this video. Do not just type it quickly as a careless, thoughtless reflex, but purposefully type it as a powerful, resounding, prophetic decree over your very own life and future. Let that simple, incredibly powerful statement be the heavy, unbreakable, solid iron anchor that securely keeps your weary soul steady when the turbulent, terrifying winds of sudden doubt inevitably try to blow you entirely off your ordained course tomorrow morning. Let those bold words be a loud, public, undeniable declaration to the entire unseen spiritual realm that you are absolutely no longer bound or controlled by the paralyzing fear of the unknown, but that you are completely, joyfully, and entirely surrendered to the absolutely perfect timing and the utterly flawless, beautiful plan of your loving Heavenly Father. If your weary, battle-scarred, exhausted soul desperately needs a permanent, safe place to fully rest, a sacred place where you can constantly and dependably be reminded of your true, royal identity and my completely unfailing, overwhelming love for you, then I urge you to subscribe to this channel and stay deeply, intimately connected to this continuous, refreshing flow of living, healing water. I promise you that I will faithfully continue to speak directly to you, to carefully guide you, and to deeply comfort your heart through every single, individual step of this monumental, life-changing journey. You absolutely must remember, whenever the icy grip of panic tries to forcefully rise in your chest again, that you are absolutely, undeniably not stuck. Stuck is a total, fabricated, worldly illusion. You are simply, beautifully resting in a necessary state of divine, holy preparation. I am carefully, intentionally loading you deep into the slingshot, pulling you back intensely through the immense, painful tension of this incredibly difficult season, specifically so that I can boldly launch you entirely further and vastly faster than you ever could have possibly traveled, relying solely on your own depleted human strength. The intense, uncomfortable tension you feel right now is simply the massive, stored potential energy of your impending, glorious breakthrough. So take a long, deep, cleansing breath, lift up your beautiful, heavy head, and gently wipe those bitter tears of deep frustration from your incredibly precious eyes. You are right now stepping boldly into the absolute greatest, most magnificent chapter of your entire existence. Go out in absolute peace, my beautiful child, wrapped securely and tightly in my unending love, powerfully armed with my insurmountable, fierce courage, and completely, joyfully confident that your absolute best, most radiant, most triumphant days are standing directly, beautifully right in front of you. I am actively walking with you right now, completely out of this virtual room, out of this momentary, digital connection, and right directly into the physical reality of your busy, daily life. Tomorrow morning, when that loud alarm rings once again in the dark, I command you not to greet it with a heavy heart of dread, but to greet it instead with a quiet, knowing, secret smile. Fully understanding that every single second you spend in that old, small place is simply a ticking countdown to your glorious, miraculous exodus. You are my absolute greatest masterpiece, my most deeply treasured possession. And I will absolutely never, ever let you fail. Rest entirely, completely in my warm presence today. Trust implicitly in my entirely infallible, perfect timeline. And watch with awe as I miraculously, beautifully unfold the golden path of your absolutely extraordinary, breathtaking destiny.